It's precisely at these events, such as today, where we have an opportunity to consider the significance of the Scottish independence referendum and ensure that all of the voices within Scottish society are reflected in this debate. The reason that I am here today is to provide you with a positive case for independence and to explain why I feel that it's not only relevant to all of us here today, but as part of the wider objective of achieving a fairer, more socially just and equal society. Right now, we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be the generation that achieves independence, a generation of young people who, for the first time in their lives, will have an opportunity to decide on the future of their country. Anecdotally, the aspiration of most young people is to become independent of their parents, to get a job, and to be in control of their own finances, to have a place to call their home, to have a car to transport themselves to where they want to be without limits. So why is it so inconceivable for a country to have the same aspirations? I believe that Scotland can achieve its full potential in joining other independent countries in the world, that Scotland can speak for itself, and ultimately no one cares more about Scotland than the people who live here in Scotland. Our hope for the future of Scotland is that it can be a much stronger, fairer and more socially just country with the real powers of independence. Who here voted for the Conservative Party in the last general election? I didn't think so. Now, the reason why I ask this question is because the reality of the status quo is that we're governed by a system which we didn't elect, and it's not a democratically representative of the Scottish electorate. Therefore, how can we trust that the decisions of the UK government have the best interests of the people here in Scotland? In the past 30 years, Scotland has voted and has achieved 1 in 3 of the governments in which it votes for in the UK. We have an opportunity to ensure that we always get the government we vote for here in Scotland. The questions that continue to remain unanswered for me, such as what our Better Together campaign offering Scotland at this time, other than jam tomorrow and simple promises that things will remain the same. Scotland's future should not be demarcated by questions about Plan B and Scotland's position in Europe, because these aren't the real issues here. The reality is that the UK cannot even provide these guarantees. There are no real certainties. A possible Tory-UKIP coalition and an EU in-out referendum, and the current negotiating position on currency has received contradictory opinions. This will change. The real opportunities that are available to us, we have the opportunity to create for ourselves. We have the opportunity to do this in September. A devolved Scottish Parliament already governs itself in areas such as health, education, transport and justice, and does its best to create a better, wealthier, healthier, greener, fairer, smarter and more creative Scotland. However, we can do more. I believe that with independence we could achieve so much more. With control over welfare, defence, the economy and taxation, we could have so much more. We could have a voice on the world stage, and we could take the decisions in the best interests of the people in Scotland. I, for one, believe that the UK government's agenda priorities are wrong. The welfare reforms and the bedroom tax primarily impact on the poorest in society, while the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. On defence, Trident and nuclear weapons are minutes away from our major city in Scotland, whilst 1 in 4 children grow up in poverty and people queue for food banks less than 10 minutes where we currently sit. This is not good enough, and we are not better together if that is the reality. Now, I am fortunate enough to have experienced a Scottish Government in my lifetime under the devolved system, which makes decisions in the best interest of the people of Scotland. This makes me ask the question, why are all decisions not taken in Scotland? Devolution has allowed us to achieve many things which benefit the lives of people here in Scotland. On education, here in Scotland, we have protected free tuition fees. Students are not saddled with thousands of pounds of debt. Instead, education is based on ability, not income. The NHS, one of the greatest inventions of modern history, something we should be striving to maintain and protect. Instead, we witness the gradual privatisation of services in the rest of the UK. No prescription fees here in Scotland ensures that those who require medication receive the treatment that they deserve and need with no further cost to their health. These are just some of the examples of the benefits of having a devolved system, but again, we can do more. Scotland has been a country of innovation for many years. With modern inventions and an independent legal system, we are already a unique country, not only in terms of rich natural resources, but we have a progressive advancement in renewables. We also have human resources, and Scotland deserves to be recognised for its wealth of skills, talent, knowledge and ambition in its own right. The referendum marks the most significant decisions that we will make as a nation. Young and old alike, we will have the opportunity to take a stance on the course of Scotland's future. An independent Scotland can put the priorities of Scotland's people first, allowing the wealth and talents of the nation to flourish, creating more opportunities for everyone here in Scotland. I am confident that, like many other independent nations, Scotland can and should be an independent country and will be successful in managing its own affairs. And for that reason, I ask you to consider the possibility of voting yes.
I'll get straight to it. I will be voting to keep Scotland in the UK in September. I think we gain more by being in the UK, but by having decision-making powers in the Scottish Parliament over things that we have, quite frankly, always done differently here in Scotland, like schools and hospitals, like our justice system, and many other things that we control as well in the Scottish Parliament, like public transport as well. We live now in a world of interdependent countries where people gain by working together, not by pulling up the drawbridge and staying in isolation. And I understand that people feel remote from Westminster. I was in Carlisle in the north of England a month or so ago to talk to a group of women there, and they felt just as remote from Westminster. People in Scotland also feel remote from Holyrood, and I think actually that's a challenge for all of us politicians, also I think to the public, to improve the way actually that we do our politics and to be proactive. And certainly that's something that I do a lot in my constituency in Western Bartonshire. I end up with a lot more work, but I don't sit in the office and wait for people to come to me. I go out and knock their doors and write to them, and I ask them what they want to see in their communities. And I think we want to see a lot more of that from all of the political parties. But feeling remote from politics, whether it's Westminster, whether it's Holyrood, actually the most criticism I think I tend to hear is of our local councils, which is often very unfair. But that isn't a reason to change the borders of our country. And I know that people don't like the Tory and Liberal government at Westminster. I don't like them either. I vote against them regularly, trooping through the lobbies. I also don't like an awful lot of things that the SNP government are doing in Holyrood. But that's politics. Governments are temporary and they can always be changed. But again, it is not a reason to permanently change the borders of our country. And I think when we look around the world at some of the really awful situations that some people are in, particularly right now, feels like half of the world is exploding at the moment. I think we have to be really careful when we talk about us not having democracy here, because we do, and we're very lucky to have it, and we should always work to make it better. But it is something that I think we should value as well. I believe the risks of independence are just too great for us to take a gamble on the unknown. And just take one issue, the currency. And Angela said, I don't want to misquote you, but basically said that that's not the important issue, that's not the issues that people actually care about in our communities. But this is a really, really important issue. Because Alex Salmond, who is leading the Yes campaign, says that he wants to use the pound. But we would not be using the pound as we use it now, because we would not be in a currency union. And why is that? Because everybody, apart from the Yes campaign, agrees that for a currency union to work, you need a political union. And if Scotland decides on September the 18th that it wants to be a separate independent country, then we won't be in a political union with the rest of the UK. That would be what people had voted for, so we would be separate. So a currency union would not happen. So we do need to know what the plan B is. This is important. And I'm afraid the Yes campaign won't tell us, the SNP won't tell us, Alex Salmond won't tell us. This is the man who wants to be the Prime Minister of an independent country, won't tell us what money we would have in our pockets.
I've learned a lot throughout the campaign. I've never considered myself Scottish. I don't have a strong Scottish identity. I mean, obviously I'm Scottish, but all my family were Irish. We grew up with an Irish tradition, and that's kind of like, so I never really considered myself being Scottish, and I didn't really know a lot about Scottish history, Scottish literature, art, like culture, tradition. I didn't really know that until this campaign started, and that's the truth. And I didn't really think about, you know, Scotland's right to self-determination. These weren't things that I really kind of engaged with, but as the campaign's gone on, and I've learned probably things that I should have been taught in school, as I've learned those things, it's opened up a whole new world for me. The other thing is that the movement for Yes is stretching all across Scotland, from the Highlands to the borders, East Coast to West Coast, islands. I did a meeting in Iona about independence. It's 150 people that live there. You know, it's contagious. People are setting up little branches everywhere and going out and doing things, and just being really, really active, and people are engaged with the debate. So it's been absolutely brilliant. I've learned it's definitely been an interesting journey, for sure.
The thing that I think I've learned is Scotland is a nation that cares, and I don't think that other nations don't care. I'm not suggesting that at all, but I think when you go to the doorsteps, when you speak to people about this debate, whatever side of the campaign they sit on, if they're a definite no or if they're a definite yes, they still care. They care about their family, they care about their future, they care about their children, they care about their grandchildren, and that is an incredible thing, because one question, do you believe Scotland should be an independent country, has engaged every single person in one way or another. They might have walked past it and thought no thanks, or they might walk past it and thought hell yes, but either way it's got people thinking, it's got people talking, it's got people engaging in politics like they've never engaged before. We have an office in the area that I live in, Hamilton, and every day people drop in, they come and chat, but the activists who are there every single day give their time freely because they just believe. It's not a pipe dream, and I want to make that clear. It's an aspiration, it's a hope, it's the possibility of being instrumental in change. I think to say anything is a pipe dream is to disregard the thousands upon thousands of people in Scotland who believe that this is an instrumental opportunity. And so for me, the thing that I have learned is that people really care. They care so much that whatever way they vote, they care enough to know about what this debate is about and to really engage in it, and that is so crucial.
I've been really inspired by the amount of people that have got involved, and I think that's very much been on both sides. I'm inspired every weekend when I go out door knocking that there are new people coming along to help out with Better Together who have never in their lives been involved in anything like this whatsoever, but they believe so passionately that we are better together. There is so much more that unites us than that divides us, that they want to give up their Saturday to stand in the pouring rain and chat to people. And I'm really inspired when I talk to people on the doorsteps about how engaged they are, even people who haven't made up their minds yet. It's not because they haven't made up their minds because they don't care. They haven't made up their minds because they care so deeply and so passionately about it. I had a great experience a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to a guy for about 20 minutes, and I usually tell my husband off for doing this because, you know, you go into an area, you chat the doors, you want to get the information, you want to get back out again, and he's always spending 20 minutes on the doors, and I'm saying, come on, we need to move on. But this guy was he was genuinely 100% undecided, and I spent about 20 minutes talking to him, and we had a fantastic conversation because we talked around all of the issues, and at the end he was still undecided. I still believed what I believed, but he thanked me at the end for taking the time. And I think having those opportunities to talk to people, having those opportunities to get involved in politics, and to reaffirm our commitments to say that we don't live in a perfect union, but we do believe that what we have is good, is worth fighting for, and carry that commitment on after the 18th of September to making the union a much more perfect union. And I strongly believe that whatever the outcome, it will be that inspiration, that commitment that will hold us all together, whatever happens, and that will mean that we all work together to work for a much better Scotland, whatever happens.
Yeah, I'm similar to Kat. My ancestry is all Irish, and I always think that I have a bit of a split identity, which is that my kind of historical identity is very Irish, but my Scottish identity is a very modern identity, and I associate it with kind of Glasgow and you know, all the kind of regeneration we've had here in the west of Scotland, and you know, being out there on Saturday night and the people that you mix with and all the rest of it, and I think the opportunities that we've had that you have on your doorstep as a young person, I think, living here in the west of Scotland as well. So it's been really interesting talking to people about their identities, and although people people can be very proudly Scottish, but they still want to be part of the UK. They don't see it as having to be separate from the UK to have that identity. I think it's been interesting to see that people really do get that this is a really big decision, and that they know that there isn't any going back, so they feel the weight of the decision. And I was speaking to a woman on the doorstep yesterday, and she said, and she was undecided, and she was anxious that she was undecided. She felt she needed to make the right decision, and she actually said, could you just leave us out of it? Could someone else just decide this? So I think people care about this really, really deeply, and they know it's a big deal. I think also the other interesting thing is that I've learned is that you shouldn't make assumptions about young people, because I think a lot of people, and you know, it was the right thing to do, but I think there was a bit of cynicism about why 16 and 17-year-olds were being given the vote, and I think there was an assumption that they would vote yes, and actually in every single debate that there has been in schools, I think it can't be right that it's every single one, actually. There must have been one or two, but the vast majority where they've had a debate and had a vote have come back with a no. That 16 and 17-year-olds, the majority of them seem to be saying no thanks. So I think that's interesting as well.